I had just woken up to the fact that girls are really pretty. And I was sweating and running around, and there was Father Joe in the corner of the room kind of watching me like he's watching a tennis match. And eventually he goes, "Hey, Mike, I want to talk to you about something. Come on over here, Mike." And I'm like, "Hey, Father Joe." Goes, yeah, pay attention to me, Mike. We're friends, right? We're friends. You know me, right? We're friends. And I said, "Yeah, Joe, we're friends." He goes, "Yeah, I noticed something about you. I thought it's time you heard it from me what I noticed." And I go, "What's that, Joe?" And he goes, "Yeah, I've noticed you could be a real asshole. Do you know that?" And time stopped. I'd never heard a priest swear before. And he really cut me. And it was intentional.
Hi, I'm Bryan Wish, and welcome back to the One Away Show. Today's guest is Mike Maddock, founder of Maddock Douglas, advisor to Fortune 500 CEOs, and someone who's made a career out of helping others bring bold ideas to life. In this conversation, we talk about the difference between inventors and entrepreneurs, why self-awareness is a growth accelerator, and how Mike learned to stop chasing every idea and start building systems that outlast him. This episode is full of real insight, personal evolution, the kind of perspective that only comes from years of doing the work and helping others do the same. Let's jump in. Mike, welcome to the One Away Show.
Hi, Brian. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Nice to have you here. Mike, what is the one away moment that you want to share with us today?
The one away moment. Okay, so there's a saying that when the student is ready, the teacher appears, or something like that. And there's also a saying in the Midwest that if you plant corn, you get corn. One of those is not true. I'm the son of a Notre Dame scholar, debate scholar, and St. Mary's scholar as well. My parents are both really good students. And when I was born, they quickly realized that I wasn't. And so what they decided to do was let the nuns have their way with me. And I wound up being enrolled in St. Joseph's School in Homewood, Illinois. And between 8th grade and freshman year in high school, I won my first debate with my dad. My parents wanted to keep the nuns going and send me to Catholic high school. And I argued that Homewood Flossmoor, which is the public school, would be a better fit for me because I wanted to go into the arts. I wanted to be an architect, a designer, something like that. And they had 44 classes and Marion had 3. So anyway, he's like, "Sure, you can do that under one condition." Except my dad sounds like Darth Vader. So I didn't get that gene either. He's like, "Michael, under one condition, you've joined Teen Encounter." I'm like, "All right, Dad, Teen Encounter." And Teen Encounter was run by a guy named Father Joe Ruiz. It was this youth group for high school kids. I was excited because Father Joe was a great guy. He was very evolved. He taught us how to meditate. He laughed like Fozzie Bear. I remember, it was like, from the Muppet Show. And I liked him. He kind of looked like Santa Claus out of costume. So we went on this retreat between 8th grade and freshman year. And I remember doing everything I could to get the attention of the girls. I had just woken up to the fact that girls are really pretty. And I was sweating and running around, and there was Father Joe in the corner of the room kind of watching me like he's watching a tennis match. And eventually he goes, "Hey, Mike, I want to talk to you about something. Come on over here, Mike." And I'm like, "Hey, Father Joe." Goes, yeah, pay attention to me, Mike. We're friends, right? We're friends. You know me, right? We're friends. And I said, "Yeah, Joe, we're friends." He goes, "Yeah, I noticed something about you. I thought it's time you heard it from me what I noticed." And I go, "What's that, Joe?" And he goes, "Yeah, I've noticed you could be a real asshole. Do you know that?" And time stopped. I'd never heard a priest swear before. And he really cut me. And it was intentional. And the thing about, I wrote a book called Plan D, and it's about disruptors. And I used to say, when people ask me what a disruptor was, I'd say, well, they're people that blow shit up for the good of the whole. I've changed my definition. Disruptors are people that can see possibility where most people see problems. Or more specifically, they can create possibility where others see problems. And Father Joe saw possibility in me. And he went on to say, but when no one's looking, you're not like this class clown intellectual bully. you're a nice kid that really cares about other people. And he goes, how about if I see more of that from now on, huh? And I remember from that moment on, like my trajectory changed. He woke me up to the fact that I didn't have to be like a smart aleck, intellectual bully to be a cool kid. And it absolutely changed my life. So I credit Father Joe Ruiz for, metaphorically slapping me in the back of the head when I needed it.
What a powerful story at such a young, formative age. And appreciate you sharing so vulnerably.
Thanks, Bryan.
You don't mind me asking, what made you feel the need to be a smart aleck asshole? In his words, like what was the driving motivation and thought behind doing that?
Probably birth order. I was the second oldest in the family, so I could get away with more. We had 4 kids in the family that were all pretty close in age, so kind of fought for our pork chops, and I learned early on that if I could crack people up or make someone laugh in a really tense moment, I'd get attention, and that started early days. And it's funny because I would get detentions all the time for talking too much and doodling in class. And now I get paid to talk too much and doodle. I just had a gift for being, quick-witted. And it's kind of like a superhero power, to use your superhero power for good or evil. And I think that Joe wasn't telling me to shut up. He was just telling me to be nice. I mean, I had a job. When I was 23, I got hired as the editorial cartoonist for the Pioneer Press. So for a brief moment in time, I was going to be an editorial cartoonist. So I just naturally saw, things. The world is funny to me. People looked funny, people talked funny, and it's the way God made me, I guess.
I appreciate you sharing maybe, why you felt the need to show up as you did, or the attention seeker disruptor that you are. Even though like you have this calming presence to you, I'm just curious if that was part of your DNA as a child. But you said something that when you said Father Alex, right?
Father Joe Ruiz.
Oh, sorry. So Father Joe, when he called you that, you said it was trajectory changing. So it sounds like you maybe started doing or living a bit differently. What did you start to notice or maybe tune into after that in a different way?
I just noticed what was giving me energy. How I was a little kid too, Bryan. I was a really tiny guy as a kid. So, I've got 2 sons. One of them is 6'3", and I think him growing up, he never had to worry about being picked on or anything because he was always this big kid. And so he's got this confidence about him that I didn't have. So I think I just started noticing how I was, what gave me energy. And I tried to make it out of positive things instead of like taking advantage. There's that saying that, some people make themselves feel big by making other people feel small. I just tried to stop doing that. Because I didn't really realize I was until Joe shined a bright light on it.
Just to back up the train a little bit, you attribute maybe not being as tall as others at a younger age, almost like you being a smart aleck or whatever it was like a way to kind of stand on even ground with them.
Yeah, I guess. Here's another story that's related. When I was I remember early in my marriage, my late wife Ruth challenged me because I was debating about everything, and I came up in a family where my father would, kind of make you debate stuff. He'd ask for something and he'd say, "Well, tell me why you want that." And so we were trained to argue about things. Kind of, like we everything was open to debate. And it didn't matter which side of an issue you were on, you would still debate it. And I remember early in my marriage, Ruth was like, why do you do that? Because I was debating with her. And then I go, yeah, I totally agree. And she said, well, what just happened there? I said, well, we were having a conversation. She goes, well, it felt like an argument to me. And that does not, I don't like that. Stop doing that. And again, it was kind of a moment where like, whoa, there I am. There it goes again. I'm debating someone because I want to feel like I look smart or understand an issue, but other people feel like it's abusive. So, it's like giving feedback to people or challenging people. They first have to know that you love or respect them for them to receive it as anything other than abuse. So that's a big, that's part of that learning curve.
On this note, did you, it's so interesting actually, did you and your dad have a good relationship?
We do. We have a great relationship. But as a kid, you just, my dad had a big shadow. And I was like, you want to make a boy cry, talk about this relationship with his dad. I think we all have someone in our family that was our hero. For me, my dad and mom both were heroes, but in different ways. So it wasn't a bad relationship. It was just, it was, I learned watching him engage with people in sort of the debate scholar way.
And maybe just for even more context to this conversation, why did your father care so much about debate in general? And why was it so important to show you that at a young age?
Well, I don't think he really was consciously trying to show me how to debate. I think it was just his rhetorical style. It might be, it's part of my story. I just had dinner with my dad last night, and he's just curious, and he wants to poke at things. At least when he was younger, he did. And that's how I learned how to poke both sides of an issue. And then I took debate in high school, and, you're taught when you study debate that you should know your opponent's argument better than they do. And that's how you win, by knowing both sides of an argument. And I think that, when it comes to critical thinking, that's so important. So it's not a bad thing. It's just, again, do you use your superhero power for good or evil is the question.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, your father maybe displayed those traits as well growing up, and you can maybe be more present to them now, but then it seems like you've adopted them yourself. You spoke a little bit about, with your late wife, where maybe these qualities showed up, or even at school, these qualities showed up, and they maybe not the best light. But I have to imagine in every weakness, these skills and qualities you also developed were used in a way that was beneficial to you as well. So if I'm asking, how would you say these skills have kind of helped you as you navigated through life, even if you're more present to the behaviors maybe when used in a negative light?
Are you familiar with the law of instrument, Bryan?
Law of what?
The law of instrument.
No.
Okay, so Maslow came up with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Most of us studied that in school. He also came up with what's called the law of instrument. And essentially it means everyone's a hammer looking for a nail. And the way I think about that when it comes to leaders is this, that we are born with a skill or two. That's our hammer. We're a hammer looking for a nail, or maybe we're a screwdriver looking for a screw. The insidious thing about the law of instrument is that we actually make problems appear to be what we can uniquely solve. So we make screws look like nails. And that's really important because, I started Flourish Advisory Boards to make sure that there were 6 types of thinkers around each table, at least 6 different types. So there's a hammer, a screwdriver, a wrench around each problem. And the reason is because everyone's going to view that problem through their unique lens. And one person's go, that's a hammer, or that's a nail. The other person will go, no, that's a bolt. And it's by seeing our issues differently that we have the ability to solve them. We don't get stuck as much. So back to your question, one of my skills was being persuasive. the flip side of that skill is being a jerk, like bludgeoning people. And so learning how and when to use your skill, and then surrounding yourself with people who are, that you respect enough to say, hey man, what are you doing? Not to overuse the metaphor, but that wasn't a nail you just hit. Is super important. And it's important in relationships, whether it's personal or business. And I have found that the best business leaders surround themselves with people that see their challenges differently, so that they can put their unique skill to use when it is required, not all the time.
I mean, on that note, right, and like debate, problem solving, and it seems like when you look at things in a more holistic way, understand all the different angles to potentially get something done, and then figure out like who can get it done to kind of create a recipe that it's going to be supportive long term. Is that fair to say?
Well, yeah, I think that just pushing a little further. So those 6 different types of lenses around a flourish table are the operator, the strategist, the rainmaker, the visionary, the futurist, and the orchestrator. And my seat is the visionary seat and the rainmaker seat. If I had 2, it would be a visionary rainmaker. So my go-to punch is to challenge convention. Like I never met here's a visionary joke. How many innovators or how many visionaries does it take to change a light bulb? The answer is, does it have to be a light bulb? So I'm going to look at every problem going, well, why do we do it this way? Why don't we do it differently? But that can be a real issue if you've already figured something out. And so there's a time in my career where my whole executive team saw issues like I did, and we were so great at reinventing, but we couldn't execute. Like we could not. Once we found the answer, we couldn't stick with it because we just loved reinventing things so much, and it got us into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I like the 6 descriptors, and then the visionary and rainmaker qualities specifically too. Told me that a fellow, following your philosophy well. Mike, I'd love to know too. I mean, I like the way you think. I really enjoyed our first chat, but it'd be awesome for you to just share with us kind of conceptually how you came up with Flourish advisory boards, kind of what led to that, given all the types of peer advisory groups out there, and kind of what your vision is and what you're doing with the organization for other people like myself and different leaders.
Yeah, so I've been very deeply involved with EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and YPO, and Vistage. So there are all these great organizations that the number one benefit, if you ask the members, is a forum or a peer group. Some people call them masterminds. They have all different names for them. And because of that, I joined my first forum in EO. Ooh, it's embarrassing. It must have been 30 years ago now. And I've been in the same one now for over 25 years. And then same thing with YPO, 15 years is the one I'm in now. And when my late wife got sick, just by way of example, those guys carried me. I mean, literally at times and figuratively for sure. So they're my best friends in the world, and they're peers. They can call me on my BS. And it's a flawed model. And the reason is because it's like, you throw a bunch of ingredients into a pot of water and you hope the soup tastes good. And it typically doesn't. It's too bland or too salty. So my thesis was, what if, you took that same intimacy, vulnerability of a peer group, a true peer group, and then you combine it with recruiting, or you engineer the group so that you have these 6 different types of thinkers. Because what I noticed was I would show up in these groups and I'd present the same problem over and over until it became embarrassing. And in design thinking, there's an axiom that if you keep trying to solve the same problem over and over again, but can't solve it, you're probably working on the wrong problem. So it's through the 6 different lenses that you see your problem differently. And then there's a professional moderator, there's a professional coach that keeps things going and tight. We meet virtually, so you can put the thing in your pocket and take it with you to your vacation home, or your, on a trip or whatever. So it's just more convenient. And that's how it that's how it happened.
No, awesome. Yeah, I do know the EO org well and agree it's a phenomenal org and people and others. And
Incredible.
neat that you were able to blend and take, it's almost like that book 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, where you kind of take the best ingredients of certain things and make your own concoction. And it seems like you've made your own form concoction in a way that works. Where just as well as you think about the vision for this, like where's the organization right now in terms of kind of from where it was inception point, and then where do you see as the visionary it going to really kind of help achieve what you have in mind for it?
Thank you for the question. And for the record, just I still am in a YPO forum. I'm still in an EO forum. I have nothing but mad love for those organizations. And so this is a turnkey advisory board. So if you're an entrepreneur running a P&L, the vision was you could join a group and have a turnkey advisory board, because you had it's like having a head of sales, a head of operations, a head of technology, all in the same room, but your peers. So where it is now, I have groups set up where the average members revenue is about 600 million, all the way down to groups where the average members revenue, is closer to 5 million. I try to have these groups be in the same zip code in terms of size of revenue. I have a community built where all the members and the outside experts can engage with each other. We're close to being to a point where you could go up there and get the questions that a strategist would ask about a certain problem, the questions an operator might ask about a certain question. I think we live in a time where anybody can get the answers, but you need to have the right questions. And my vision is to have thousands of members impacting each other in this community. So, it's a flywheel. We're pushing it one day at a time, but I'll tell you what, Bryan, it's so great watching these people help each other get unstuck. It's just really, really a powerful thing.
Yeah. And I love what you said is like a turnkey advisory board, because in a way, like a forum in EO, at least from my perspective, it's more like emotional and self-development. And yes, there's a lot of it's a business to a degree, but you really have to seek it out. Where I think what you're saying is, hey, you want these really refined skill sets across, a group of people. I can go get that expertise without having to go find those people myself and kind of keep showing up. I would love to know a story, right? You talked about from 5 million to 600 million, this wide swath of leaders. I mean, you can speak to all the stories that have come out, testimonials of just on a chapter by chapter basis, year over year. When you think about Flourish, what are one or two stories that give you goosebumps when you tell them?
So I have a CEO of a $60 million-ish company in one group. And he came to me and said, look, I've got a guy that's running one of my P&Ls. And I think this guy is going to be the president of my company someday, but he's not ready. He doesn't know how to engage with our CFO. He doesn't know how to engage. He's young, but man, I love him. So could he be in one of these groups? And he joined the group a couple years ago, and just watching him grow in terms of confidence and engagement. And, about a year after he joined the group, the CEO called and said, hey, I got to tell you something. That guy just laid out a strategy for our company. It's the best presentation I've seen since I started this company. And it was amazing. Well, his group helped him build it. And this just recently that he was named as the president of that organization. So just that, and that's happened twice, actually, 2 different times in different groups where the CEO of a company said, I want my P&L owner in another company because we're going to start acquiring firms and I want him to run it. That's happened. So that's an example of how being around these different thinkers kind of iron sharpens iron. They learn how to engage, and they also learn that they don't need to be in any other swim lane but their own, as long as they have really competent peers around them to go, wait, here's how I would do that. Oh, didn't even think of that. So it's pretty amazing. There's an example of what's happening in these groups.
Super cool. I mean, and not only that, it sounds like incredible personal and professional growth in a very tactical way with other very impressive leaders. So, I mean, if you mind me asking, like, what is your kind of process for absorbing content in like other forums? And I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes, and then like thinking about things, sitting with it, and then kind of rolling things out maybe in a different way, like best practices of those groups, plus like your own unique vision for your group. I mean, it has to be a really cool thought experiment and then the execution challenge.
Well, so my challenge as a visionary rainmaker is not to reinvent every wheel that's ever been produced. My challenge is to pick the things that can be evolved or, reinvented, a few of them, and then keep the things that are actually going really well. I just spoke at the EOS conference and I met Gino Wickman for the first time. I have so many friends that are buddies with him. So I've heard his name for years. And I finally got to meet him and go, hey, dude, we know a lot of the same people. And I think what part of Gino's brilliance is that if you read Traction, the first thing he says is, this is Pat Lencioni's idea. This is Jim Collins' idea. This is Vern Harnish's idea. This is like all these ideas. All I'm doing is putting them together. So, long answer is that for me, demonstrating restraint and not having to reinvent the wheel is the hardest thing. And then I guess the second hardest thing is once something's solved, actually following that system over and over again, because it's not my prerogative is to do everything different every day. And that will, Bryan, be solved by an executive team that is balanced. So as this company grows, I will be looking for the operator and the strategist and the rainmaker to fill out the team.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. I mean, like you're probably your recruiting methodology to kind of fill the different spots at Grotto C, which is probably a whole nother interesting experiment. Mike, so this disruptor kind of quality in you, you mentioned the book Play MVP, if I heard you correctly. I'm just curious, like for yourself. I mean, I see a lot of myself in you. I could be wrong or I could be right. How do you restrain yourself from like always creating the next thing, doing like, how do you, like, what systems have you put in place for yourself, right? To like keep yourself on track and put people around you, right? That kind of keep you regulated and on path, because you could come up with another idea every other second, I'm sure, if you wanted to.
I mean, I'll just do something. Here's a really simple idea that's worked for me. And it's, cliches are cliches for a reason. If you've heard this before, it's because it's probably true. If you can have the discipline of, before you leave your office or your desk every day, picking up a piece of paper and saying, what is the one thing that I can do tomorrow that will create the most impact in my business, in my family, or whatever, the one thing. Write it down and put it in order. That's the one thing. Do you want to put another thing under it? Go ahead, put 5 things, but what's the one thing? And the next morning, when you get to work, do it. And if you get that one thing done, you will do way more than most people do. Because for divergent people like us, Bryan, you come in, you turn on the computer, you start on social media, and, the day gets away from you, and then you're tired and you didn't get that one thing done. If you can just execute that one thing every day. The other thing about that is that if you write it down, you'll leave it at work, and it'll allow you to be at home and be present for your family or friends, because it's waiting for you the next day. You don't have to think about it. That's been really effective for me. Of course, having a partner that can build, portfolio strategies around what you're innovating this week, this quarter, next month is awesome. But that's the hack I use to make sure that I'm on track.
I'm very aligned with you. Here's my piece of paper I write every day, but I also keep it on the computer, but I like to cross things off to say, that was it.
I actually write stuff down that wasn't on my list so I can check it off if I do it.
Yeah. No.
I want the credit. I need the credit.
Right. It's like self-validation. I totally get it. Tally the points. So here's a question for you. And this is maybe a bit personal, if you don't mind me going this direction. But I would say people like yourself, include myself in that bucket, but this is about you, like kind of need those partners and partnerships to kind of stay on track and be the how people. When I know you mentioned your late stage wife on our last call, you're getting married again. How do you think about personal relationships for, say, entrepreneurial people, more divergent people, in terms of like what the other half, like what like if you had to describe the perfect concoction of like what a good recipe would be, what do you think is important from what you've learned in relationships?
In terms of a partner?
Like a
personal partner?
Yeah, right. Or when you're wired the way you are.
I did a TED talk on this that literally the tape didn't work. It was for a Chicago TED talk. I finally did one, and then the recordings didn't work. And so I'm trying to remember. The basic premise was that in business, you want your opposite, and in personal, you want the same. Like not identical, but like the opposites attract thing is, I don't know that that's even true, but in business, it should be true, because you want the yin for your yang. You want someone that under pressure goes in the exact opposite direction of you. Like Free the Idea Monkey was the second book that I wrote, and it was about Roy and Walt Disney. And, there's a story where Walt comes back to the office on Monday morning and Roy hasn't gone anywhere. He's been doing like beautiful mind math. And he's like, Walt, I've been here all weekend. Your little idea is going to cost us $2 million. $2 million. And Walt goes, Roy, why do you bother me with these insignificant details? What you need to know is a couple things. Number one, Walt sold the cash value of his life insurance policy to keep them from going into bankruptcy. Number two, they started in a recession because Walt was nuts, just like IBM did and Airbnb. Like in recessions, idea monkeys or visionaries start stuff. But Roy was the one that made the Happiest Place on Earth and the Magic Kingdom and the Talking Mouse, because he had the brain and discipline to actually put together a plan and get stuff done. So together, they created the Happiest Place on Earth. And there was a period where they didn't speak to each other for like a couple years because they were so contentious, but they loved each other. They were brothers. And Walt actually literally brought a peace pipe to the office and said, come on, man, let's make up. So in business, I think it's incredibly important that you have your opposite and you love on them and trust them and just love the fact that they see the world different. My personal preference at home is to have someone that sees the world like me, an adventure partner. I don't want to, and here's the thing. It turns out that if you ask God and you're really, really nice, he'll send more than one angel your way. So
probably some really good karma given what you've gone through. I'm happy to hear it.
Thank you. Yeah. And Mike Michalowicz is the one who introduced us. So that's an ear connection. Mike Michalowicz and I have known each other for 20 years. We've been in a group forever. And he came to me and said, hey, when you're ready, I want to introduce you to someone, because he went to her and said, hey, what's up with you? What are you looking for in life? And she told him, and he's the connective tissue. So that's an EO, entrepreneur to entrepreneur connection.
That's beautiful. I'm so happy. Yeah. You had some troopers looking out for you. Seems like you have many soldiers in your corner. So
I'm blessed. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate the distinction and delineation of kind of at home, but also kind of in work, and definitely relate to the work front for sure. I haven't found the personal side yet, but in time. When it comes to work, right? We talk about freeing the idea monkey, which that's a bit of the cover. If I were, is the cover a bit cartoony? Does that go back?
Yeah, it's got a little monkey on it.
Hey, that's what I thought. Yeah. Does that go back to your cartoon roots? That's not my question, but I'm just curious if there's a linkage there.
Yeah. So the thing behind me, that little idea monkey, that's Wes Douglas drew that. That's on the cover of the book. Well, what happened was my business partner at the time, Raf, I was going by his office and he's like, hey, idea monkey, get in here. I need an idea. And I was like, idea. Like I thought it was the highest compliment anybody could ever. I think he kind of meant it as his tongue was squarely in his cheek when he said it. He wasn't sure it was a compliment. But for me, that was like awesome. So that's where the book title came from. Free the idea monkey to focus on what matters most is the subtitle.
Well, ever since we talked, you've like really been in my brain, like etched in my brain. I think of myself as an idea monkey all the time. And, so, you've had like a deep impact on me without knowing it. So thank you. And like, yeah, it's a vivid visual.
But send me your address, Brian, and I'll send you a couple of little idea monkey things.
Oh, that'd be great. I'll order the book too. So that way
I can send that too if you get me your address.
Yeah, it'd be great. I embrace it. I'll find a good spot for it on the wall or something.
There you go.
It seems like you're a bit of the who person as well. You also can see what you need to see. You can sell well, but like the bringing in the how people is an critical function to your existence. What have you found for yourself? Just around you, obviously like with Flourish is probably a representation, but like for you personally, like how have you been able to bring, how people into your life effectively to build strong partnerships in business?
It's a great question. I typically ask people that I trust, that I believe in a really great network, and I love connecting people and possibilities. So if someone says, hey, listen, do you know anybody that I hope to be able to say yes and turn them on to someone that's really, really good at that skill. And I rely heavily on my friends for the same thing. Just, you get into some kind of legal matter. The first thing you do is say, who's the best lawyer you know in this kind of thing? And you know who you call for that, right? You have a short list of people. You're like, who do you know that? And so I have people like that in my life, and social capital is so important. Brian Wish, who's a friend of mine from Northwestern, speaks about social capital theory. And I think it is, I think it's like the treasure of a good business person to have good social capital.
I can resonate a lot with community and putting good people around you. I guess the deeper question then is, okay, if you go to your relationships in your community to find good how people, being a disruptor that you are in the world and maybe finding every ways to do things better, you probably get on some people's nerves too.
Never.
But what at the same time, you've clearly figured out a good way to build great relationships to tap the network when you need it the most. So if I was to ask you what makes Mike Maddock such an incredible relationship builder and accumulator of social capital, what would you say has made that possible?
Well, my impulse is to help or to give, not take. My father is a minister. He was a Navy captain. My mom was a teacher. And acts of service is his love language, my love language. So I think that, like relationships are like money market funds. You're always making deposits. And then if you need to make a withdrawal, if you've made a lot of deposits in the past, people are just desperate to help you. And my instinct is to give to people and help them if I can. And I think that's true of most servant leaders, The other thing is that, the world is so small and technology makes it smaller. Brian, you sent a note to me. I know you because you sent a note to me. And the first thing I did was I look at your LinkedIn account and I noticed that a lot of people that you knew are great people. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh. And that was our first conversation. Tony and Sean and and I'm like, this guy hangs out with good people. So there's an implied trust right out of the gate.
I really appreciate what you said, and also similar to how I saw my mom do things growing up. You see your daddies, but wanting to give and wanting to help, and make a withdrawal every now and then when you need it is super important. So I can definitely appreciate your style. I'm like, this is like my replica across the screen in some ways. It's scary. No, it's fun to
That's kind of,
see how you operate.
I'm flattered by that. Thank you.
No, I mean, like, it's really cool to, like, sometimes I personally feel like there's not a whole lot of people who operate the way I do in the world. And it makes it a little hard to relate in the world to certain people, but to know, like, there are some people as well. I put Sean and some Camp Tony to a degree for sure. Like, but they're few and far between. I think it's a pretty rare quality to just like show up in the world like that. And it's cool. Maybe your father with a representation of that for you to embody and embodying in your own way.
So it's just to be clear, Bryan, you're way, way, way. I'm an old man. You're way ahead of me. When I was your age, man, I was so competitive, and it was like, we're charging this hill together, or we're not, all for one and one for all. You had to be on the same team. And I have learned over time that's not true. Like there's plenty of goodness to go around, So but it took me a long time to figure that out. I think you're way ahead of me. You're a much nicer guy than me. Let me just put it that way.
I won't tell, but thank you. No, Mike, no, very kind. So Mike, you've written books, you've led companies, you've in these forums, what's, when you look at your life as a whole or an aggregate, like the next 5 to 10 years, whether in work, your new personal kind of developments, kids, like what do you see as a meaningful, rewarding, like next decade? Like, how are you looking at the future right now across the domains of your life?
Well, I really think Flourish Advisory Board is a manifestation of like what I want to be when I grow up, because it's really, my purpose is to inspire and empower curiosity, and I do it by connecting people and possibility. And so all the organization does is that. And I am delighting in watching these people help each other. And for me, I have this vision of the more people, the more they're helping each other, the more people, the more they're helping each other. So a couple of years ago, we had a retreat in Nashville, and we had to write an album cover for the story of our life, the soundtrack of our life, and or write an album, the title of an album or a song. And mine was, and then Mike showed up and life got better. And I just hope that, someday when I'm dancing with angels, people have stories like that. Yeah, he made my life better. That's really what I'm in it for at this point.
Touching and super visual, and like you can feel that. And wow, what a beautiful way to navigate and go through the world. So.
Yeah. Well, God isn't finished with me yet. Be patient.
Mike, is there, I could ask other questions from what I know about you, but is there anything we haven't touched on today, like in the nature of the elements of our conversation that you think would be important to address, or things maybe you want to call out that maybe hit on or hit the thread on? I'm just curious if anything kind of comes to mind that you want to.
Bryan, tomorrow in the middle of the night, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be like, oh, I should have talked about, man, we should have talked about, but right now, no, I've just enjoyed talking to you. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, Mike, where can people find you, find your work, your books, Flourish? What are all the ways?
Yeah. So, I'm easy to find. If you Google Mike Maddock, Maddock, you'll find me. The books you can get them on Amazon, all of them. Mike at MikeMaddock.com. Mike-Maddock.com is a personal website. FlourishAdvisoryBoards.com. If you're interested in knowing more about like which seat you would wind up in, you can go on to FlourishAdvisoryBoards.com, and there's a little quick test. And if you or you can type in your Colby score, which would even be better. And I'm happy to talk to anyone about like, you're a strategist and this is what it means, and here's your blind spot and all that stuff. So yeah, that's how to find me.
Awesome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I look forward to hopefully meeting you in person in the future and following the journey and seeing how your Flourish program and boards continue to evolve.
Thanks, Bryan. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the One Away Show with Mike Maddock. What stayed with me most is Mike's ability to evolve from inventor to leader, from founder to builder of people. His story is a reminder that real growth happens when you stop needing to be the smartest in the room and start making space for others to shine. Whether he's guiding global brands or raising kids with curiosity, Mike leads with intention, clarity, and humility. He's not just building businesses, he's building environments where change can happen. If this conversation sparked something in you, I'd love if you shared it or left a review. We are back every Tuesday and Friday with more episodes just like this. Until next time, keep telling yourself the truth and create space for the future to unfold.